The Disneyland Limited, now leaving for a grand circle tour of the Magic Kingdom. All passengers board.
Star Tours announces the boarding of the Endor Express. All passengers, please prepare for immediate boarding.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas. To those guests who've just joined us, welcome. For those of you standing, please hold on to the handrails throughout our journey and stay clear of the door.
Please keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the train and remain seated at all times. Now then, hang on to them hats and glasses, because this here's the wildest ride in the wilderness.
I am Sam, the American Eagle, and I am proud to introduce the Grand Circle Tour podcast, a celebration of Disney parks, but mostly the American ones. I really like these guys.
Welcome aboard, passengers. This is Elisa Claire here. I'm going to be your tour guide today. Today in the studios, I have a very special guest for you. You probably know him, and if you don't, you will definitely know him very well by the end of our tour. I have Joel Christopher Payne here. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me, Elisa.
Welcome.
Thank you.
What's up, Joel?
I'm very excited to be on your show. Thank you for having me. I have a long history with the Disney company, but an even longer history with Walt. So I'm really excited about talking about my journey and what's led to what I'm doing right now, which is going to blow people's minds. So I hope we keep all the listeners entertained all the way through it.
Oh, definitely. Well, no one really knows exactly why I have you here today, but that we're going to save for the last little segment. I want everyone out there to really get to know who you are, because I feel that in the coming years, everyone's going to know who you are anyway, by default, because you're embarking on an incredible journey, I feel. And I ended up getting to know you through Facebook and a lot of your posts. And I don't want to use the word inspiring because people use that a lot, but it's very true. You've been working on some things that I feel are incredibly inspiring, especially to our youth. And I'm a mother of 3. And I think that you have something out that you're working out that a lot of people need to hear about. I think you are the next Walt Disney, not to compare you to him, because no one will ever be Walt Disney, but you are doing something that I feel like no one out there is doing. But let's let our listeners and our passengers, as we call them, Joel, I want them to get to know you. So tell us a little bit about, take us back, how you got started in art. Did you know that this was going to be your journey?
Well, I guess, yeah, I kind of had an epiphany when I was 5. And if anybody goes to wishpictures.com, they'll see a little interview where I talk about that moment. That was really kind of a light bulb moment for me. And I really appreciate the kind of nod to Walt. You know, people have kind of said that to me jokingly throughout my life, that I'm very Walt-like, or I'm going to build the next big Disneyland. But the truth is that there's only one Walt Disney, and he was an incredible man. And he inspired me in ways that I think most people are inspired. But I took it further and acted on kind of that call to action that he had, in terms of making fantasy real for people, believable fantasy, which I've actually romantically dubbed my painting technique believable fantasy, and I'll get into why I call it that. And it's definitely a nod to Walt Disney. So it started when I was 5 years old. I was on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. Me and my mom had gone, by just me and her, and my sister had stayed at home with my dad. And we didn't have a lot of money at the time, but that was my birthday present, going to Disneyland at 5. And it was one of the first vivid memories that I have as a kid, where I was, in the boat next to my mom on the in the Blue Bayou section. And I looked over and I said, "Mom, the robots, they look so real." And that was the first time I'd ever seen that ride. And without hesitation, she looks over to me and says, "Sweetheart, those are just the waiters." I guess I had thought they were on a track, going around. I mean, I didn't know. I thought that they were robots, but they were the waiters. And but you would think that would destroy my suspension of disbelief in
Yeah.
fantasy. She ruined my fantasy there, but it had the opposite effect. I was so impressed at how Disney was able to fool me, and I couldn't tell what the robots were and what the people were in that environment. And it made me want to learn how to do that. It inspired me. It was the first time that a movie had kind of come to life for me. So I kind of looked into getting into a job with Imagineering. And as all kids, everybody I tell that I got to work with Imagineering, I have people telling me, I want to work for Imagineering. Well, who doesn't want to work for Imagineering? It's a great organization, brilliant thinkers, and the way that they think in terms of creativity, that there really are no impossibles, that you can do anything. We just need to figure out how to do it. Just that freedom as a kid at 5, thinking that anything was possible, learning about how the original founders of Disneyland thought. And they didn't have any experience with architecture at all, as an architect. They were just artists, making it happen. And it was very kind of just thrown together in a lot of ways, not haphazardly, but from a creative, artistic standpoint. And to me, just always loving art as a kid, watching the movies, it really compelled me to want to be an artist first and foremost, before I was ever engineering or imagineering anything. So I started drawing when I was a kid. I remember very vividly with my cousin having drawing contests with him, where I would draw Frankenstein and Dracula and the Mummy, and trying to see who was the better artist. And of course, my cousin was bigger than me, so he always won. But my dad gave me a little packet of. He used to work in a print company, and he'd bring me box loads of pads of paper. Little flip book sized pads. And I would sit underneath my what I called my wish tree. Later, I'd find out that Walt had a similar kind of a thing. He'd climb up in the tree and dream about his future, and that, unbeknownst to me, I was doing that up in that tree. And I was doing flip book animation, trying to kind of mimic what I saw in the books with Disney. And I would sell those books in my neighborhood, going from door to door. And I sold them, I think, for $1 to $5. But one real hot summer, very much like Disneyland on opening day, all hell broke loose. And the macadamia nut tree was raining a mist of sap down on my drawings, and I didn't know at the time. And when I went to go flip them, the pages stuck together, and that was the end of my animation business. It was like Oswald all over again. My whole business was ruined, and I had to start from scratch. Later, I would get into the video game industry. I would sneak into the back lot of Universal Studios after I had won the film festival a couple of years in a row at Pasadena City College. I got D's and F's in school. I'm ashamed to admit that, but it's true. I really did terrible in school. Primarily, I was bored,
Mm-hmm.
And it just didn't pique my interest. And later, when I found out that Walt didn't make it through high school either, I felt a little better about it, thinking that my options weren't dead. But I got into college, and I snuck into the back lot of Universal Studios with my films, and I found a book on Who's Who in Hollywood. I found a name, Deborah Newmeyer. She was a producer at Amblin at the time, and I snuck back there trying to meet her. Long story short, I got to do some set painting on some movies, Jurassic Park and Flintstones, and a couple others that people probably heard about. I wasn't credited. I was just kind of I begged for work back then, and it was really a lot of nepotism in the film industry. So I was looking for something that would give me some legitimacy. And right around the time that Jurassic Park came out, the video game industry was kind of coming into its own, and I thought, well, I could be the Spielberg of the video game business. So I tried to apply, and no one would hire me. Eventually, I decided to kind of make my own game, and I was really inspired with LucasArts, and there was a pirate game on there that maybe people have heard of called The Curse of Monkey Island, or the Monkey Island series, and it had storytelling and art, and it just was like little mini movies, And I thought I could do that, and I could do all of that. I had the ability to write music, I had the ability to do art and animation, and I did voice work and stuff like that when I was around that age, and I was an actor and knew how to direct. So I thought that was perfect. But again, nobody would hire me. So I found a friend that had an Amiga store in Arcadia, not too far from the mall. And I took over one of his computers at his store. He allowed me to do that. He was programming the game, and I was doing the art and using one of the computers that he was selling to make a game. And this woman walks in and says, "Wow, I thought I owned every Amiga game in this store, but what's this one?" And I said, "It's mine." She's like, "Wait a second, you were making this by yourself? You did all of this?" I said, "Yeah." "Well, not just me. I mean, it's the guy behind the counter. He's programming it." She's like, "Well, it takes like a team of like 20 to 30 people to do what you're doing there by yourself. If there's ever a job opening, I'll call you in." Well, she called me in. I got a job working for New World Computing. This is back when there was only really just like kind of 32 colors on the computer, and the beginnings of the video game business, really. And that led to a 28-year-long career in the video game industry as an artist, as an art director, as a game designer. And when I was 25, that's when I got to work for Disney with the Imagineers, working on the Virtual Jungle Cruise. So,
and that's something that all of our passengers, I'm sure, are very familiar with. Unfortunately, I was going to go to Disney Quest, and then I think we got there on one of our vacations. It was a month right after it had closed for the very last time, because there's a lot of talk like, we're going to close it. No, it's going to stay open a while. No, we're going to close it. So I never got to experience it, but I know that was a favorite of a lot of people's.
We had a lot of, there's a lot of different projects that came into that idea, and the company I was working for at the time, Angel Studios, had a history in virtual reality. They were the animation company behind the Lawnmower Man film, so they did all those 3D renders for the virtual world. So they were really kind of, even though they did it fantastically, they were coming into doing it for real. And so there was a couple companies that did some really great things in there. There was this Make Your Own Roller Coaster project in there, and there was an Aladdin carpet ride. We took some of the people from the Magic Carpet Ride, the Aladdin ride, hired them into our project. And so I basically got to build, I had complete control over the river. So if anybody's gone down that thing, I was the guy that had complete creative freedom to do all the bumps and the turns. And we had art directors and designers that laid it all out. But when push came to shove, I'm the person that figured out where every ripple in that ride was. And I had a lot of really fun things. One of the things in Big Thunder Mountain that happens is there's this one moment in the Disneyland version where it looks like you're going to come right at a rock, and then you drop down real fast. It looks like and then you go kind of in a tunnel, and it's just like this drop move. I replicated that in that attraction in the Virtual Jungle Cruise, where there's a section with lava and you're coming right at a rock and then you drop down. So there was a lot of nods to Disney's traditional jungle cruise in there. So we got to go to the actual Disneyland, and we got to take over the attraction when everybody was gone. I got to drive the thing, and I was going backwards on the thing. It was really fun to have that kind of creative freedom. And we launched it. I got to ride a ride all summer long. I mean, it's a good gig if you can get it. And we became the number one attraction out the gate. And then the Choose Your Own roller coaster attraction became more popular than ours, but we were still the front runners. And that one ultimately, I think, went away. And the Virtual Jungle Cruise, which we built in 1995, lasted all the way till last year. And that's crazy. That's crazy. That's such a testament to, we did it right. People were in it long enough to keep it going for many years. So very proud of that.
Yeah. Let's take a minute here. I got so excited. Let's take a minute, and I want to introduce my co-hosts for just a second. I didn't know it's the first time you guys are meeting. Jason Thomason's in the studio joining us. What's up, Jason?
Hey, everyone. How are you?
I haven't been on with you in a really long time, so I'm happy that you're here. I'm happy.
Really good to see you.
You too. Joining us tonight as well. Hi, Caroline.
Hey, I'm so happy to be here. It's been a while.
It's been a long time.
It's good to be together again, guys.
It is. You know, this is what I love so much about our podcast, and our passengers do too, is it's like every time we get together, it's just family.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, the
It's just
second you say
this
Disney,
laid back
you're
coffee talk.
instantly family. Yeah. The second you say Disney, you're already in the family. This is a family. I mean, Walt created the best, biggest family on the planet with what he did. So anytime I say that I'm a Disney guy, that's the kind of the benefit of being a part of such a wonderful group of people. This company is so powerful, so wonderful, so inspirational that when you say I work for Disney, people instantly love you. And then you gotta toe the line and make sure that you're living up to Walt's expectations, which I hope I'm doing. But it's a wonderful group of people. I mean, all of the Disney fans that I know, and I met a lot of. I maxed out on my friends list. I've got 50,000 on my fan page. I've met a lot of these people, and they're just so kind and sweet and supportive of me. And I like trying to appease the fans with the art, to give them something of quality that I know even Walt would be proud to hang on his wall. And that's where I stand with that stuff. I'm loyal to a fault to the man that started it all. So.
And that's one of the most appealing things I think about Walt. Walt never did anything for money. He never did it for the fortune or the fame. He always did it just to create the family experience, to give and to, and kind of rolling into the next thing, my next question. That's what drew me to your page, Joel, and your art. Well, your art first, just because it's aesthetically beautiful. You've gotten that out of the way, yes. But your messages that you're sending out there, can you tell me a little bit more about your Friendlians project? Because a lot of people have never even heard of it, or they don't understand what it is.
Well, I was a skinny kid in high school. I can remember all the way back to kindergarten where, I was a white kid in an all Hispanic school. And my kids are half Mexican, which just kind of tells you what my upbringing grew me up in terms of who I would be attracted to growing up. But I was bullied a lot from kindergarten all the way into my professional career in the video game business. I mean, I was working with alpha males in a very cutthroat industry where, millions and millions of dollars were at stake, and people got very abusive and territorial and alpha male about their roles. And just having been bullied, so many years, thrown in the trash by people, having my scooter picked up and thrown in the bushes because I couldn't afford a car in high school. Stuff like that really kind of wore on me. And just kind of coming into the video game industry and kind of seeing the power that industry has had in influencing kids. I know that we've had a lot of mass shootings and stuff, and the first thing that people want to pull up is the video games and the first-person shooters, and they always want to do studies on these things only to find that they can't find any correlation. They can never zero in and say it's video games that did this. And the reason why that happens is because we're seeing a change in our culture, in our media, in the things that we're consuming in forms of entertainment that are promoting bad behavior, that are promoting violence, the glorification of just pushing sex so much in front of little kids. Just hear the lyrics of any song that's on the radio, stuff like that you wouldn't hear when I was a kid in the 70s. It would be shocking to hear any of the things on any of the stations that we see, movie, television, or radio, or video games, any one of those categories. So when you've got a lot of different things coming at you, justifying bad behavior, glorifying it, actually making it fun to make fun of people that are acting fools, it's hard to pinpoint any one particular thing as the problem. But just coming from the video game industry and the history that I have, that I'll write about someday, that will probably get a lot of people angry at me. that we were told very specifically to put in mechanisms that would make kids addicted to these things that I didn't agree with. So in 2008, when the housing crisis happened, and I was working as the art director on Elder Scrolls Online, that's a $300 million video game, and I was at the top of the food chain, top of the video game industry. The housing crisis collapsed, and I basically walked away from the video game industry, never to return. I had a brand new son. I would later get a divorce after my twin daughters were born, because I had walked away from the video game industry, and I didn't have that clock puncher income that my wife at the time expected. And so I was trying to kind of become an entrepreneur. And when I was raising my daughters, my twin daughters, alone, and my son alone, without any help from my family, my mom and my dad didn't help me. I had no sister or anything that was in the vicinity that could watch my kids. I looked around and I thought, where the heck are the products that are going to help me as a parent to back up my play in the family values that I cared about? I grew up with Little House on the Prairie and the Brady Bunch and the Cosby Show, despite Cosby's horrible indiscretions. He's paying for them now, but I wanted Cosby to be my dad. Growing up, I looked at that family and I thought, that's a great family with good morals and good ideas. Even Three's Company, you could say, despite it being kind of slapstick, they always had a moral dilemma that was being worked out at the end. And they had to kind of make amends for the bad behavior that they had. But now you just can't find shows like that on television. You can't find products like that. So I had this kind of epiphany, this light bulb moment, that I could build a network and I could use technology to inspire children to do good things. Walt got that in me. He's the family man. He wanted to create family entertainment, a place where families can go to enjoy a park. It's kind of becoming a lot different as the corporation has kind of gone in a different direction, I think, than I think Walt intended. And so I thought I could pick up the baton and do something that would inspire a lot of people and just kind of help them learn how to communicate with the world in positive ways, kind of like a Mr. Rogers on steroids of sorts. Pardon the pun, but yeah, it's kind of like that. I just looked around. I'm like, wow, there isn't a single lifestyle brand in the world where every product encourages a child to make a good choice in life. And I just saw an opportunity, and I figured I could use my Disney pedigree to do it. And I happen to have been working on technology for the last 10 years that is nothing short of real, true magic that could do that. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But in terms of the artwork that I do, the paintings that I do, they are breakthrough. They do have a uniqueness to them that's different than all the other artists that are on the wall. And that's because I'm merging old school painting techniques, acrylic and oil painting techniques, but I'm mixing it with 3D sculpture and digital painting techniques. I'm actually 2016's Corel Painter Master, so I do digital as well as traditional in these paintings. And the result of this kind of original thinking with old school meets this new school thing, kind of a merging of Walt's traditional hand-painted backgrounds from Pinocchio meets Pixar technology. I did that because Walt inspired me with Fantasia as a kid, and he always wanted to push the boundaries of art and give people something new, and he did that. In a lot of ways, he made animation an art form, when it wasn't even considered one, and still to this day, people struggle with it being artists, 3D artists even being respected as artists, because people think that computers do it all. Well, it's just not the case.
Well, I have a question about the way you mix your media in that way. About how long would it take you to do an average piece in that style? Well,
when I was first getting started, I was very kind of quick and dirty, so it took me about a month to get the first one done. But one of my paintings has taken me 2 years, and it's probably I nearly went blind painting it because I kept on forgetting to blink. and I had to go to the optometrist. He's like, "What do you do for a living?" I'm an artist. I stare at a canvas all day. He's like, "Well, you should remember to blink because your retina is starting to detach." So I really focus on the details, and the technique offers a level of color, detail, and contrast and lighting that you can't get any other way other than going through this kind of gauntlet of multi-layers of detail and techniques. I guess you could say that a traditional artist could probably paint 30 paintings in the amount of time that it takes me to do one. And for a lot of reasons, I kind of regret coming up with this concept, but it's very popular with Disney. I've sold out of a lot of my stuff, and I just managed to get a contract with the parks. So I literally can now paint anything that Disney covers, from Star Wars to Indiana Jones and the feature stuff, as well as the parks. And I'll be focusing on attraction paintings next year, and spending a lot of time probably putting out maybe 3 or 4 paintings for the entire year, because they do take so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when you're taking your career from your gaming career and your fine art career and your endeavors through entrepreneurship, and you put those together, and if you were talking to your 18, 19, 20-year-old self,
Loaded question.
It is a very loaded question, but it relates to your Friendlians message as well. The kids that are coming out of high school today who can't answer right away, the old question, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Right.
A lot of people, including myself, I could never answer that because I've always had so many interests. And nowadays, they're trying to pinhole you. They're trying to say, well, if you don't know what you want to be, good luck. What would you say to someone who's my son's age, 16, who doesn't quite know what they want to do? Would you say go create your own opportunities, or?
Well, I get that question a lot, and I've actually gone and spoken at different places. I was blessed and got to speak at. I got to spoke. No, I got to speak at Harvard a little bit more eloquently than I am here. I got to speak at Harvard in April to talk about exactly that question, and that's why the Friendlian Project is so relevant to what we're dealing with today. What do I say to kids when they don't know what they want to do when they grow up? It's simple. You got to find out what you're passionate about. What are the hobbies that you do when you're not doing your homework? Do you skateboard? Do you draw? What do you like? What are your passions? What are your interests in life? I mean, you really got to kind of sit down and start with that. What fascinates you as a person? I think that the problem with today's society, different from when I was a kid, is we didn't have computers that landlocked us, in a couch. And we got out, we explored, we had to use our imaginations a lot more than I think we're kind of handing our brains over to phones and devices and technology. We're handing it over, kids. I mean, back in the 70s, I had to remember all of my friends' phone numbers, and you couldn't say that you can remember. I mean, I couldn't even tell you what my fiance's phone number is by heart right now, So we've gone away from being kind of challenged to come up with our own world, with using imagination, That's how we got Walt. He was poor and he built his own world, and I think for me as a kid, when I was a little kid, I would draw primarily, as all other artists do, to escape from a lot of the stresses that I was dealing with at the time, the poverty that I was having to struggle with. Having the ability to draw allowed me to build the world that I would eventually live in and make a living off of. And in a lot of ways, I really gave myself no other choice. I got D's and F's in school, so it was artist or bust, and I made it work and turned it into a business, and that's what gave me my drive. But if I was to say, what do I say to little kids? I'd say, find out what you really truly love, and then figure out how you can make a business out of that, where you're the person running the company, and be an unstoppable force of nature, where no doesn't matter to you. That word no doesn't exist in your vocabulary, and you do it until it's done. I mean, I spent 10 years trying to raise money for Friendlians to try to get this extraordinary technology to market. And on Mickey's 90th birthday, through astronomical odds, two people that happen to know each other intimately as kind of father figure and daughter figure, who happen to not know, that know each other that intimately, are people that I randomly met separate and apart from each other that managed to go to bat for me, that have funded my project. I mean, the odds of these two people knowing each other and me randomly meeting them separate and apart from each other is some sort of a miracle, which just kind of tells me that I'm onto something big, that something bigger than me wants this to happen.
Yeah.
And if I had given up on year one, I wouldn't be able to tell your listeners what I'm about to do, which is very Walt-like.
Let me stop you right there, because that's perfect. I'm going to take a little break. We have a contest going right now for our passengers. So Ken, tell us a little bit more about that.
We are giving away a brand new sold-out limited edition Splash Mountain POP vinyl. To enter our contest, just join our Grand Circle Tour Podcast Magic Ticket Holders Facebook page. Want more entries or already in the group? For every friend you add, you will get another chance to win. Share the post. Get even more chances to win. More great giveaways will be added throughout the month as well. So keep your eyes and Mickey ears open. And keep referring your Disney friends.
Joel, so you just said that you have some major news that just happened on Mickey's 90th birthday, which just passed.
And on Mickey's birthday, a miracle happened. I mean, it was 90 years to the day that Walt came up with this character that was different from the predecessor, because it was really let's be honest, it was a lucky rabbit that really started it all. Everybody wants to use that catchphrase, it was a mouse. No, sorry folks, it was a rabbit. It was Oswald. That's what really got Walt into the animation business and led to him having the people that surrounded him as an animation team. That's what got Ub involved. But when he lost all that, had his setbacks, we had Mickey, 90 years to the day, and that's a different character than Oswald. The Lucky Rabbit was a little mischievous. He was a little bit of a troublemaker of sorts. So when Mickey came along, I don't know if it was him or his wife or just a combination thereof, but he thought, let's make a character that's beloved, that inspires people, that's a good guy, that's an everybody guy, that everybody would love. And that's what was different from all the other characters at the time out there, because cartoons are always kind of mischievous. When Warner Brothers came out, when the people that left Disney to go to Warner Brothers cartoons, they kind of continued the anvil to the head. And that was definitely not something that Mickey was about. Mickey was a loving character, still to this day. He just makes you feel good, makes you feel good about yourself. So it's ironic that 90 years to the day, a project that is literally built around that concept of building a universe around that idea of getting all of the characters, all of the things in it, something that you could be proud of and inspired by, that would want to make you watch it and then go out and do things that you could replicate that are good things. So it's kind of like taking the concept of Mickey and not just trying to entertain you, but literally trying to convince you to be like Mickey, in a way. So that's kind of where Friendlians has kind of come. It's trying to build a universe that is built on that very basic philosophy that Walt had all those years ago. Yeah. But this toy technology takes it to a level that's a little gonna shock some of your listeners here when I tell you what I've done. It's taken 10 years, probably even more than that, 15 years to pull off.
Okay, so for our passengers, I mean, I'm friends with you, so I understand Friendlians a little deeper than people who are just hearing this for the first time. Are they just characters? Is it a full storyline? introduce us a little bit to the Friendlians universe.
Okay, so the Friendlians are an alien race. Think of them like ETs of sorts, like the movie E.T., you know. We didn't get to see where E.T. went, you know, where his homeworld was. So I thought I'd love to make a bunch of aliens that are friendly just like E.T., but they've got a really good story. Maybe their planet is beautiful. So I kind of reverse engineered the story. So I thought, well, maybe it was beautiful at one time, kind of like the inside of E.T.'s ship, which has all this, it looks like a lot of organic stuff in there. He's very much a hipster. You know, the whole thing runs on plant material or something. I don't know. It's all eco-friendly in there. So I thought, well, this place is a paradise where these Friendlians come from. But then I said, well, wait a second. What if we kind of did this as kind of a foreshadowing to what human beings are doing on this planet? So we've got problems on this planet with, you know, temperatures rising, crazy weather, earthquakes. You know, we've got all kinds of catastrophes that seem to be happening here. And, you know, everybody's really concerned about it. And I thought, well, maybe the Friendlians were just like us. They were like a warring people. You know, they fought against each other. They were greedy. They were selfish, you know, kind of like human beings are today. But they're a lot further along in their timeline than we are right now. So their planet started looking a lot like Mars does. The planet had been scorched. They bombed it to smithereens, and they were living underground, basically waiting to die. The last of them are really kind of running out of time with the resources dwindling on the planet. When a more superior alien species comes and rescues them by giving them this thing called the Destiny Star, and it has 5 destinies on it, which basically is the model for the 5 subjects that I want to teach children. And under that category is self, peer, grown-up, universe, and the future. So under that category of self, we would be teaching things like how to feel good about who you are physically and mentally. So physical and mental health. Maybe we'll be teaching kids how to de-stress and how to eat properly, how to exercise properly, so they can feel good about who they are, whatever they look like, whatever sex they are. They'll feel good about themselves, and we can reset that and take away all the self-loathing that human beings are so accustomed to with the way that we're marketed to in our society. And then the peer destiny would cover how do kids relate to kids their own age. So how do we combat bullying? How do we get kids, maybe a boy is really shy about introducing himself to a girl that he likes. Well, how would he go about doing that responsibly so that he doesn't get hurt and the other person doesn't get hurt? And you know, how do we conquer those fears? And these are questions that my son and my daughters, they ask me all the time. And, you know, they're questions that parents are supposed to answer, but I don't think not all parents know how to combat bullying. And there's a lot of evidence out there on how to do that. So I thought we could take evidence on the best ways to solve these problems that are plaguing our kids and putting it in there so that the kid can learn how to communicate with other kids effectively, you know. And then the grown-up destiny is, how do we respect our elders? You know, when I was a kid, respecting your elders was a thing, you know. You remember that back in the day? I decided, you know, I got this idea from watching viral videos where there was a subway staircase that had been taken over by a social experiment where the escalator was there, but, you know, they wanted to see if they can convince people to go up the staircase. So they painted it like a piano and they rigged the steps to make sound like a piano. And 66% of the people started taking the stairs. And that was like a profound moment for me that kind of set up how I would ultimately do a movie, where the movie would be kind of a whole bunch of those kind of social experiments that are convincing the kids to do good, thereby releasing them of the bad aliens that are secretly stealthed to their heads, joystick controlling them around to do bad. So those social experiments are great because it only proves that you can make doing good fun, you know, making the right choices fun. You just have to give people a better choice that's fun instead of, you know, work, which isn't always fun. You know, make it not work, make it fun. And so getting kids to talk, you know, to relate to themselves positively, kids their own age positively, to respect their elders, to take care of the planet through the universe destiny, Like, why are rocks and animals important? Why is their future important? We could talk about any occupation in the world. We can put it into a little 5-minute cartoon and tell them the highs and lows and what the practical solutions are to actually achieving that career. Maybe even teach kids as young as 3 to 7 how to save money, that their toys, if they take care of them, are actually worth something. Had I had that knowledge, I'd be wealthy. I would have kept all my Star Wars toys.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be doing pretty good right now. I wouldn't have needed to get funded. But I had this technology in my possession that's really powerful stuff, and it could be used and weaponized if it was in the wrong hands and if it wasn't done delicately, because it's really a new form of entertainment, no different than when Walt decided to create the first animated movie, or for that matter, audio animatronics, which was really, truly the first example of real, true 3D animation. I mean, if you really think about it, Walt Disney was really the first 3D animator. I mean, his stuff is more 3D than Pixar's stuff, still to this day. You know, it holds up. I mean, Pirates is still more 3D than any Pixar film I've ever seen.
Yeah.
So the toy technology came on the scene, and I thought I could use it for good instead of evil.
Yeah. So what do you want to speak to your toy technology? I mean, I've heard some things, and I know you want to clear the air. So let's talk about your toys.
I've been interviewed a couple times, and people think that I'm making Skynet, and that's unfortunate because I'm so against artificial intelligence. It couldn't be further than the truth. We don't want to have AI connected to my technology if we can avoid it at all costs. It's something that I myself, my company, will never allow to have happen. But this technology is really already out there. It's been out there for a long time, just in a different form, in the form of 8-track tapes back in the day, or for that matter, audio animatronics. So we've already kind of seen this technology. People shouldn't be afraid of it. Although I think if Walt Disney had described to the public that he was going to make a fully articulated human being that was going to walk around, you know, I'm sure people at the time probably were a little scared about that until they saw what it was with the goofy pirate faces and everything, and you know, getting you to sing along with it. But up to that point, we didn't have the Terminator movie, so. But still, people were probably fascinated with robots at the time. But now we've had Terminator, and we're seeing what DARPA and companies like that are doing, and it's starting to get under people's skin. So they're very, very nervous about anything where a toy could potentially come to life. But that's exactly what I've done. The technology was invented by Rod Nakamoto. He invented the first sound card for Apple, the first sophisticated one at least. And he's a genius. And him and I have put together this technology that allows toys to talk to each other indefinitely at CD quality sound with the capacity of controlling robotics. So Toy Story for real. And if that wasn't going to blow your hair back, it also has the capacity of interacting with movies, television, games, and rides in real time in ways that will really startle a lot of people. Meaning you could be watching a movie and you can have your sidekick next to you, and it could literally become a character in the movie that you're watching.
Now, can I ask you, do we all remember, was it My Pal Mickey?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it anything like that?
No, primarily because that's not a Wi-Fi enabled or Bluetooth enabled technology where toys can talk between each other in a very sophisticated C quality way. Especially no robotics. You know, what Rod has done, several companies have tried to copy it, but they haven't figured out how Rod is able to push so much data through so that we can have, you know, millions of toys talking to each other. I mean, that's kind of ludicrous speed there. You know, maybe, and we've seen talking toys. There's the dinosaur train toys, but they use kind of an antiquated technology where there's an embedded chip in there, and it's like the same technology used for your remotes to change the channel. They have to see each other, and it only says so many things. We have Elmo Live, that has a chip. You know, it only says so many things. You can't get more stuff. And maybe that Mickey thing could have continuously had content downloaded into it as an individual experience. But because they built the whole thing on kind of antiquated technology, it didn't work as they expected, you know. So no, I mean, my goal is to do exactly what I saw in the Toy Story movie, where I have toys walking around like you and me, and we have the technology to do it now. And we don't hope to do it. We've already done it. I mean, we don't have robots running around just yet, but we do have very complex, I had to invent new words for this form of storytelling, and I call it nonlinear dynamic storytelling. So let me explain what that means. You could buy one toy, and you can hear the Little Red Riding Hood story through that toy. But if you get a second toy, automatically, without you having to do anything, one will become the Little Red Riding Hood, the other one the Big Bad Wolf, and they will perform the story together. Even though you've heard that story as a single story, kind of bedtime story read to you, now it's not. Now it's a performance as if it was on a stage with two actors. But then let's say the neighborhood kid comes over and he got one for Christmas. All of a sudden, that toy will automatically become a narrator that's narrating the two performances, and it will automatically inject that dialogue in between the other toys, and they'll pause so that the narrator can narrate. Then imagine all the kids in the neighborhood come over to play, and they've got the same toy. Well, each one could be an instrument. Clarinet for one toy, oboe, we have the full orchestra there.
Yeah.
60 kids. Well, what have I done there? I've done what Walt did so many years ago with Fantasound, Fantasia sound.
Yeah.
And so you basically decide where the orchestra is going to be, playing behind the two actors that are being narrated in a story that you've heard a million times, but not that way. So that's powerful. Yeah, I mean, we could literally have a bunch of, $400 figurines. I'm sure you've seen these really beautiful figurines of like a miniature piano or a miniature drum set. You've seen those little miniatures. Well, you can get the drum set, and you can have a button on it. Every time you press the button, it'll play a different type of drum style forever, right? As much as we want to put in that drum. And then we have the piano right next to it, and the same thing can happen. You press the button on it, and it'll play every style of piano you can imagine, right? But when they're next to each other, all of a sudden the drum is playing with the piano, and there you go. And you can collect the whole set and have the full orchestra. Now, why is that important? This nonlinear dynamic storytelling mechanism, that process that I just described as an entertainment process, could be used to teach children better than a Harvard professor could. Because using nonlinear dynamic storytelling, I can ask a child a question, and if that child doesn't understand the answer, I can pull from the cloud a different teaching methodology until the child understands the idea. And, so it's a very, very robust, very, very complex teaching system that could literally be, I wouldn't say like a virtual teacher, but it's as close to as having a real person with all of the knowledge in the world you can imagine, with a million different teaching methodologies on how to answer any one given question. And to me, when it really comes down to me talking to my younger self, I'd say, don't worry about it, because in the future, I'm going to have a mechanism that's going to help kids learn how to learn in a way that they've never had the opportunity to. Everything's like one shoe size fits all for schooling, and if you don't learn in the way that they teach you, you're screwed. You're kind of SOL, So to have something that could teach you in the way that you learn could really unlock the potential of our kids in ways we've never considered. So
this really resonates with me, and this is what initially drew me to you and your whole entire mission, because before I met you, this is what's been going through my head. Exactly. I've been having the same issues. I have 3 kids, and every child is different, and I'm having the same problems with the school district. It doesn't matter, school to school, at least here in California, it's the same thing over and over. And I'm in a position where I can't afford fancy private schooling, and a lot of people aren't the same way. So, I have to take it upon myself to find these things. So as a parent, it's mind-blowing what you're doing, Joel. So,
well, I want to stress, there's probably people thinking, oh, he's trying to replace parents. Well, take it from a guy who's a single parent with 3 kids, okay? I'm not trying to replace you. I'm trying to create Mary Poppins, so that when you're at work and you can't interact with your kid, and you've handed your kids over to a babysitter that really doesn't care about anything, that you're watching a whole bunch of other kids not really doing anything about teaching family values and life lessons that you care about, that you can remotely still have a toy in their hands that's whispering these sweet words of kindness and love, that you would want them to, if they're going to play with the toy, if kids are going to stare at a phone, let's give them something good that they can look at, all parents can agree are good things for them to watch. I'm not trying to replace parents. I'm trying to create a Mary Poppins, for them, so that they can have an advocate that backs up the parents' play. There's too many things that are going against us as a parent right now. And there's not a single thing out there that's saying, hey, wait a second, we're with you. I agree. Kids shouldn't be fighting. We should figure out how to combat bullying. We should figure out how to get kids not getting their hands on guns and thinking this is the way to get off of this planet, is to blow up everybody, and make a name for myself. These kids are mentally ill, and maybe the technology, if I create the curriculum in the right way, maybe I might be able to use the technology to recognize that a child is schizophrenic or has autism, and we can customize the content to address their very specific needs so that we can get them professional help, the help that they so desperately need. So the long-term goal of this is to see if we can get, professionals, experts, psychologists, psychiatrists, contributing content. But if we write a story that they've helped me build using evidence on the best way to solve that problem, that ultimately, if that doesn't solve the problem, that you have direct access to this helper, and you can get professional help, for that problem, because there's only so much that a toy can do. I mean, at the end of the day, this is a toy, but let's not discount it, because Mr. Rogers just wasn't a show, and PBS isn't just a channel. There was a lot that we could use these tools for good. So I did have an interview where somebody said it was AI toys created by Disney guy, and pretty much everybody thought I was creating Skynet and I'm unleashing the devil on their kids and going to brainwash them. But that couldn't be the furthest from the truth. I'm just a parent who has been bullied my whole life, and I'm just kind of tired of sitting back and waiting for somebody to rescue us all. I got tired of looking at all the violence and people talking past each other in politics all the time, and not realizing that that's not the most effective way of communicating with each other,
Yeah.
So that's what this is about.
And yes, I love it. I love it. And I could sit here all night and talk with you more. I have to wrap it up a little bit. So what I would like to do, Joel, is invite you back some other time so we can talk more, maybe get some more updates. But before we completely wrap it up, I would like to ask you, what's your future? What's your future hold for you?
Well, that's a big question mark. I mean, as of being funded, the goal is to get the Apple version of the network out. And for the listeners, just so you know, the Android version is out. It hit the #2 top paid parenting app on the App Store without any marketing 3 days after launch, which made me very proud. It's rated 5 stars right now. And it doesn't have a lot of content, but if anybody out there has an Android phone and they type in Friendlians, which is spelled friend, L-I-E-N-S. So and let me just tell you what that word means. So it's a combination of aliens and friend, because good ideas seem to be alien to kids right now. And friendly ideas are alien to kids. So we want to combine the two, and that's how you get Friendlians. So go to friendlians.club. Or just go into the Android store, download it. It'll cost you $2, but we don't track your privacy. We know nothing about you. We don't even know what your password is, and we'll keep on uploading new cartoons each month for as long as I'm alive, or as long as the company's going on, that teach these really fun lessons about, why we shouldn't lie, what does it mean to be wise, what does it mean to be kind. Things that I think any 3 to 7 year old really needs to hear. And so we're going to get the iOS version launched next month. We're just going through the final bug testing, and then we're building out a small plush that is eco-friendly. It's a little can. You could turn it into a bank. We want to have some AI, we want augmented reality connected to it, so that it turns it into a virtual habitat where an alien fish or bird or reptile has stowed away on his little pod, and you get to learn how to take care of an animal without killing one, and it talks to you. So, you don't throw the packaging away in my company. We try to, we want to make sure it's 100% responsible. And so download it on Android. Tell me what you think. Rate it with 5 stars if you can. We want to get it in front of everybody, and hopefully, eventually, we want to get that toy technology in there so that the toys can interact in real time with those cartoons, and that will be some sort of a supernatural. Let's just say tea parties are going to get real fun real quick.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about that,
I'm excited. I can't wait for the iOS version, and I can't wait to see what your art, what you do with your art in the coming months too.
Well, I can't let all of my fans down who have literally bought my art that sponsored the Friendly Project to this point. So I will definitely be continuing doing some hardcore art, and because it's attraction-based stuff that I want to focus on next year, this stuff's going to be second to none. It will be my absolute best stuff. And hey, I hear that the Haunted Mansion anniversary is next year, so you never know.
My favorite.
Hint, hint. Yeah. So that's where my head is at. I'm just I've got a clear horizon to be 100% creative with what I'm doing right now, and I really have no barriers to stop me. And I really hope that everybody listening to this jumps onto the Friendly concept, and that word, I hope, becomes synonymous with being a good person, doing good. So I'll leave you with that. That's where I'll leave the interview, because that to me is the most important thing. People being kind and loving and good. And if I was going to say, what's the Friendly mission? The Friendly mission is to raise a generation of children, inspire a generation of kids that learn how to grow up and communicate with each other in peaceful ways, solving problems that have plagued humanity for all time. They learn how to solve those problems in peaceful ways, working together despite our differences. And I don't know of any listener listening to this podcast that would disagree with that idea.
Not at all. What a pleasure it was to have you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Any other words from Jason or Caroline?
No, I've just had a great time just listening to you.
Yeah.
Tonight.
It was fantastic. I'm an actress, and so I'm completely inspired, and I'm so happy for you that you kept pushing when you got so many no's, and you got your dream to come true. So as one artist to another, I salute you, my friend.
Well, I gotta say, in parting words here, being an actor, I'm literally opening up an entirely new market for actors and directors and writers, because I'm going to have writers that can think in nonlinear dynamic ways. And I'm going to think about it. How many voiceover jobs do you really have in a year? How many movies are being made where they require not too many? So this is going to open up an entirely new market for actors and directors and writers. So I'm very excited about that, because I'll be the guy in history that made it happen for everybody. So we can all have fun together. So hopefully Walt's proud of me for that.
All right.
Makes me wish I was a kid again.
Well, you just might be. I have a lot of adults that want these toys too. So
I'm one of them.
Yeah.
All right, passengers, thank you so much for joining us tonight on our tour. Thank you, Joel. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And all I can say is, Ken, take it away.
If you would like to keep the adventure going after the show, be sure to like our Facebook friends page, Grand Circle Tour Magical Ticket Holders. While on Facebook, like our group page, Grand Circle Tour. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, Grand Circle Tour Podcast, as well as Instagram, GCT Podcast, and our YouTube channel, Grand Circle Tour. If you would like to send us a message, you can email us at gctpodcast@gmail.com. T-shirts and other fun merchandise can be found at tpublic.com. Simply search Grand Circle Tour Podcast. If you enjoyed your adventure, leave us a review on Apple Podcast. Only one rule, make it good. Thank you for riding with us, and welcome home.